This is ridiculous. The perpetually insecure Donald Trump is once again triggered and publicly lashing out at a Fox News host. This time because that host apparently didn't defend him hard enough while moderating a panel debate in which the MAGA guest also got triggered and lashed out and lied and got fact-checked. And we have to talk about this. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we're going to start with Trump. Okay, this is Trump's reaction to what I'm about to show you. Trump says on Truth Social, it's time for Howie Kurtz to retire. Every woke anchor in the business, people that no one watched from CNN, MSNBC, and others, MSDNC, right? Because he says it's basically the arm of the Democratic National Committee. But what's hilarious is, to whatever extent that's true, Fox is much more entangled with the Republican Party, but nobody wants to talk about that. I digress. And others are plastered all over his show with really negative and fake statements. And then I am weakly defended by Howie and his group. Although Ben Dominic has been strong. We'll get to that, right? Because he shows up in this clip. The case Howie makes for me is so pathetic that it would be a lot better if he didn't say anything. Anyway, that's the way it is. So think about this. It would be deranged for the sitting president of the United States to publicly attack any news anchor or news host, anyone, for criticizing him. But Howard Kurtz apparently didn't even do that. It's just that Howard Kurtz didn't defend him hard enough. How pathetic and insecure do you have to be for that to be the case? And again, it's a fool's errand, but just imagine President Obama, President Biden freaking out because Rachel Maddow didn't defend them hard enough. That's where we are. Pathetic. Let's get into the clip itself. It's about 5 minutes long, and it's bananas. The lengths to which losers like Ben Dominic and other MAGA cultists go to try to defend Donald Trump when he's in deep political shit at the moment.
Leslie, Trump is down in the polls, and no, they're not fake, and there's a lot of them. And this comes up, every 90 seconds or so at some outlets. But 6 months from now, if the economy has bounced back, and the market certainly went up this past week, who will care?
Oh, absolutely. And it will no longer be Biden's economy, right? It's just like back in the day. What did Barack Obama say? If it's a failure, it'll be Obamacare. And if it's successful, it'll be the Affordable Care Act. And that's exactly what Republicans refer to it as, the ACA. But, look, I'm all about the facts. And the facts are, my kids are going to college in a year and a half, and all the money my husband and I have saved for years, like so many other Americans, for our kids to go to school, it's disappearing. Our retirement plans disappearing along with other Americans angered our allies, not just Canada and Mexico who border us, but the European Union. And in addition to that, we don't see prices going down, crime rates going down, the things that the people voted for. Even people that voted for deportation, they weren't voting for anybody with brown skin who was here legally to be rounded up. And certainly nobody was voting for cancer research and funding into programs that are essential to our lives, our future, our children's future, and their children's future to be tampered with. So, and I think it's going to be about just more than the economy, though, Howie, because even though, James Carville, the economy's stupid, if that turns around, people, myself included, will be happier. But there are so many other issues, many of which I just cited, that still need to be addressed.
So we're going to stop right there for just a second. So again, Howie Kurtz at the beginning. I guess one of the things that pissed Donald Trump off is that he publicly acknowledged that even though Trump insists the polls are fake, they're not fake, and indeed they are not. It's just bad political news for Trump right now. And hey, you know what? Maybe he will turn it around. Maybe somehow he's going to leave his presidency the way that President Reagan did, starting off rocky and unpopular and ending, wildly popular. Maybe that'll happen. There's no evidence it will, because Trump has been uniquely unpopular as a political candidate from the beginning. But apparently that's one of the things that set Kurtz off. Leslie Marshall here, a liberal Fox News correspondent. She makes pretty good cases all the way around. It's good to point out that the economy is not the only area that Trump is suffering in. It's every major policy area, according to most polls. And that also plays key in the meltdown you're about to see from MAGA guest Ben Dominic.
That people are concerned about cuts, certainly. Okay. The elderly are concerned about cuts to Medicare, Social Security, the list goes on.
Leslie, I have to, look, your perspective here obviously is your own, and I respect it, but I just think that you're looking at things completely differently than the vast majority of Americans actually are. And if you look at it, for instance, you cited the president's deportation policies. That's literally in almost every poll the most popular thing that he's doing. And so the idea that, Democrats who've invested so much on this, this week, Hakeem Jeffries was saying, we need to stop flying to El Salvador because it looks like we're prioritizing someone who looks to be a pretty bad guy. And that's an indication, I think, that Democrats haven't come up with any alternatives on any of these counts. Just to finish, I think Howie's point is well taken, which is so much of this rests on the economy. If the economy is able to turn around and people have confidence in it 6 months from now, Republicans will feel confident headed into the midterms. If it doesn't, they won't.
All right, Leslie, what do you...
Just real quick here, because again, it gets worse. But the fact that immigration is Trump's most popular issue remains undisputed, but it's still not popular. It's trending downwards. In most polls that I see, he's underwater on immigration because of his execution on his immigration policy and his violation of due process. Now, Republicans are trying to demagogue the specific case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia in terms of litigating at the court of public opinion. Well, he's got tattoos. He was accused by his wife at one point of being abusive. She has since, tried to add clarity to that and retracted, her claims at the time. But the point for Democrats is it doesn't matter with respect to due process. Nobody's saying that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an angel, but that's not the standard for which a person is entitled to due process. Monsters in this country are entitled to due process. So even if he is one, it's still irrelevant. Accused murderers, accused rapists, accused carjackers, it doesn't. That's the entire point of due process. It's afforded to you no matter what as a blanket guarantee of the Constitution. So when you violate it, as conservative judges have pointed out, like from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals appointed by Reagan, that it's a predicate that can be used against citizens and against a president's political opponent. So again, pretty stupid take by Ben Dominic there, but it gets worse.
What do you make of the interviews, some of which we showed at the top, for example, with Terry Moran? The president really gave him a hard time about Abrego Garcia's hand tattoo.
There's so much here. First, I just want to say, Ben, if I am not with the majority of Americans, the majority of the polls would not be in agreement with me, which they are.
No, you're wrong. I'm sorry, you're wrong. There's not a single poll where he's underwater on the immigration issue.
The polling isn't showing the president at a low approval rating.
No, I said on the immigration issue. The immigration issue is the number one thing with the bullet. It's just true.
Ben, the immigration issue within the Latino community, which we have a majority of.
Okay. We're going to stop right there for just a second. I'll play you the rest of this, but Mediaite reported on this, and the headline is, "Don't talk over me," Fox contributor Ben Dominic steamrolls fellow panelists to make a wildly incorrect claim about Trump's poll numbers. So, but recent polling showed Dominic's claim to be wildly incorrect. A CBS poll found 51% of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. So that's one. He said not one. One is actually there, so he's automatically wrong, while 49% approve. The gap was even wider in the most recent Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll conducted in April, which found Trump at 46% approval versus 53% disapproval. The AP had a similar finding with a 46-53 split against Trump. CNN came in at 45-54 with the majority disapproving of Trump's handling of immigration. And even a Fox News poll conducted found Trump with 47% approval and 48% disapproval on the issue. So he is just dead effing wrong on every level, making an ass out of himself. And this is the guy that Trump is praising on Truth Social. He's defending me strongly by lying his ass off, apparently, or being too stupid to recognize what the polls actually say. It's a clue to Trump's psyche, but we'll finish this clip.
Okay, you are not going to lecture the Latino member of this panel on this and say that you know what the Latino community is saying about this. You are dead wrong. And I want you to continue to go down this road. No. Don't talk over me. You don't know what you're talking about, okay? That's just crap. You cannot say, you cannot make that claim. You cannot make that claim. It's just not true.
Let Leslie respond, please.
Thank you. Here in the Latino community, there are many people who voted for President Trump, not just for economic policies, who did want dangerous criminals to be deported. They didn't think it would affect people within their community or people within their family. They took...
So, and again, the clip goes on like this, but the point I wanted to show was Ben Dominic lashing out and apparently being dead wrong again on the issues whatsoever and say, "Don't you talk over me." Well, no, you were the one who interrupted her dumbass. So again, this is what happens when you deal with MAGA snowflake losers like Ben Dominic, who should be made fun of for how stupid and incorrect he is. So This is the guy, of course, that Donald Trump is publicly praising, and Howie Kurtz, the moderator, is the one that Trump is lashing. How dare you defend me so weakly? Supposedly impartial moderator. That's where we are. Trump once again lashing out at a company that paid nearly $800 million in an effective loyalty tithe because they knowingly signal boosted the defamatory lies of Dominion voting systems, and they had to pay the biggest defamation settlement in the history of this country as a consequence because they were so desperate to please Trump, and it's never enough. Yeah. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.